Yo, what's going on? It's your boy, Mr. Locario, the bad boy of the dating game. What's good? So, I just came out with my new bad boy membership program, which is called The Art of Approaching Groups of Women. Okay, so this one right here, this honestly, I think is my favorite bad boy membership program I've ever come out with because this has been an issue that a lot of guys have been trying to really, understand. And so what I did was I was like, look, I got to do a program on how to get girls when they're in groups. Because, when you go out to the bar, to the club, whatever, usually girls are going to be there with other people. So how do you get that hot girl that you see where it's her and four of her friends, right? Or it's her, two of her girlfriends, and a guy in the group. You understand? Like, how do you get in that situation to get that girl? So in this program, I break down all of that step by step of how to do it. Okay. So guys, if you're not on the Bad Boy membership, make sure you click the link below to get on the Bad Boy membership so you can watch this entire program. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a clip of this program. After this clip, again, remember to click the link below and join the Bad Boy membership so you can watch the entire thing. All right, so check this out. I get a lot of guys who have trouble approaching women in groups, and which is why I'm doing this program today. And we're going to be talking about three things. All right, so the first thing I'm talking about is why it's important to know how to approach women in groups. I'm also going to talk about what to do and say in group situations. And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is the 4 types of groups you're going to run into and how to approach each group. All right. So let's just jump right into this, man. Let's do this. All right. So why is it important to know how to approach women in groups? Right now, one of the reasons is women usually go out in groups. So when you go out to a bar, to a club, to an event, to any of those things, what's going to happen is that you're going to usually see women in groups. So it's either going to be, a group of 2 girls, a group of 3 girls, maybe a group of 3 girls with 1 guy, a group of 3 girls and 2 guys, whatever. You understand? So you're going to be seeing women in groups in a lot of these situations. So if you go to bars, you go to clubs, you go to events, and you want to meet some women, a lot of times they're going to be with someone, right? So the thing is, it's very important for you to know how to approach women in groups because in most of these situations, most of the women are going to be in groups. So in order for you to get that girl in that group that you want, you see some chick, you're like, oh my gosh, she's bad. But she has, she's hanging out with 3 other girls. How do you go into that situation and talk to that girl? You understand? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. You understand? And another reason why it's important to know how to approach women in groups is, you need to basically know how to get the girl in a group you want. That's really all it is. You need to know how to get that girl, right? And that's really, the most important part of you learning how to talk to women in groups and just talk to groups in general, because you need to get yourself used to doing that because you're going to find yourself in those situations a lot of times when it comes to, dealing with women, right? And so in order for you to have success in these situations, you got to know how to do it. So this is what we're going to get into today. All right. Now, what do you do and say in group situations? What do you do and say in group situations? So I'm going to talk about what you need to do and say in these situations, right? So what I'm going to go over is a few things, right? Now, I'm going to talk about recognizing the difference between an open group and a closed group. Recognizing the difference between an open group and a closed group. Next, I'm going to talk about learning how to do a group and an individual introduction. So learning how to do a group and an individual introduction, right? So right now you're probably like, what is all this stuff? But I'm going to, get to that in a second. Next, I'm going to talk about the type of energy you should have when you're approaching a group, right? I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about how to handle resistance from the group, because there's going to be times where certain, people in the group are going to not want to talk to you, or even that whole group might not want to engage with you. And what do you do in those situations? Then I'm going to talk about the one thing you must say to have a successful interaction with the group. The one thing you must say. Now, you have to say this in order to have a successful interaction with the group. And then I'm going to talk about how to interact with the girl you really want to get with in the group so that you actually get her. How to do group, so I'm going to be talking about individual introductions. Things right now. Learning how to do group and individual introductions. So, what is a group introduction and what is an individual introduction? Now, a group introduction is acknowledging the entire group first, then introducing yourself to each person in the group. So acknowledging the entire group first, then introducing yourself to each person in the group. Now, an individual introduction is introducing yourself to one person in the group first, then ask that person who they are there with, then introduce yourself to each of those people. You do not acknowledge the entire group first when you're doing an individual introduction. So again, an individual introduction is you're introducing yourself to one person in the group first. Then you ask that person who they're there with, then introduce yourself to each of those people. And you do not acknowledge the entire group first when you're doing an individual introduction. So I'm going to talk about, when to use each of these and also what to say when you're doing each of these things, each of these introductions. So when's the best time to use a group introduction and when's the best time to use an individual introduction? Now, the smaller the group, right? The smaller the group, the best course of action is to do a group introduction. The larger the group, your best bet is to do an individual introduction. So the smaller the group, you do a group introduction. The larger the group, you do an individual introduction. So for example, if you have a group of 2 or 3 people, you do a group introduction. So the group introduction is you acknowledging the entire group first, and then you introduce yourself to each person in the group. And the reason why you do a group introduction when it's a smaller group is because it's easier to acknowledge the entire group when it's a smaller group. Right? Now, let's say you have a group of 6 or 7 people, which is a larger group. You do individual introductions, because what happens is that since it's a larger group, it's going to be harder to acknowledge the entire group from the jump. So since it's a group of 6 or 7 people, what you do is you introduce yourself to one of those 6 or 7 people first, and then ask them, who are you guys here with? And the thing is, what it is that you sort of already see that they're with a group of people, but the reason why you ask them, hey, who are you here with? Because you want to be sure of who exactly is in their group. And then once you see who's exactly in the group, because they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm with, these people over here, blah, blah, blah. And then, you introduce yourself to the other people in the group. Now, sometimes what happens is that when you first introduce yourself to that first person, that person will introduce you to the other people sometimes, right? Sometimes they may not, but you can also introduce yourself even if they don't, but because the other people are, seeing you basically talking to their friend. Now, what do you say? Like, what's an example of what you say if you do a group introduction or if you do an individual introduction, right? So, because you're probably saying, okay, you're telling me to go up and approach these people, but what the hell am I supposed to say, Mr. Locario? Come on, son. What am I supposed to say? Right? So I'm just going to give you sort of an example of what to say